There it is. I also had AI up too. That was blocking. Okay. So in slideshow mode. So just a bit about me. Well, while I'm talking, if you guys can multitask, I'll give you time to do this after. But I really wanted to address your concerns, and I hope by the end we can, alleviate some of those concerns, and you won't leave here feeling as concerned. But my name's Alana Winnick, as Shirley mentioned. So I live in Manhattan, so I'm in the West Village right now. So I'm in New York City, very close to you. Sometimes I work with people that are nowhere near me. So this is really cool to be surrounded by people who are in my neighborhood. So I live in New York City, but I work in Westchester. So I'm the Director of Technology and Data Protection Officer of a school district in Westchester. So I drive every day, which is weird to live in a car, but I do. And then I also sit on the board of directors for NiceGate. If you're not familiar with that, if you've heard of ISTE, it's an ISTE affiliate. It's a free membership. So if you're in the region of New York, even in New Jersey, it's a free membership, and there's a lot of resources and PD. They power my podcast. So I just want to tell everyone about these free resources. And then last year was a big year for me. I started I didn't ever intend to do these things, but I started a web show that turned into a podcast, and then I wrote a book all about generative AI in education. So I think this is what I'm going to share with you in this session is all taken from my book. All of it is from the book, and it's little snippets. So it obviously goes a lot deeper in the book, but this is all the things that I'm going to be talking to you about today. So if you have any concerns, just I want to know about them. So let's take this moment before we dive in and I tell you what it is. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm sure there's been, there's buzzwords talking about AI. Just tell me what concerns you have around AI. Because by the end, I hope that I can make you feel a little bit better about it. Just take a few minutes to think about, to tell me about it. Or you can unmute and tell me. We can have a conversation. Bias, that's a really, really big one. Detection. Okay, so I didn't originally have these on the slideshow, but I do have a whole separate other slideshow with them. I can put all the I could talk to the points and put all the resources for you so you can have them later. I'm just writing down things that I want to remember to talk to you about. So that way I can address them later. So bias, detection. All right, any other concerns you have? Okay, sources, these are great. Great questions, great topics. Anything else? Or if you have concerns or fears, let me know and I'll get to them. So I just want to make sure that I included your thoughts into this as well. All right, so first I want to start by saying I know that Shirley came up with a name. AI is not, it's not a trend. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay, and it's not going anywhere. And the reason so I always tell people this. So when the pandemic happened, it was obviously a really horrible time for all of humanity. It was horrible. But in that time, I was in my ed tech life. I was sort of really excited about it because all of the things I'd been so excited about in ed tech, people were finally doing. I want to do these things for years, and then people were doing them. And then what I found after the pandemic was people were just teched out. They were put the technology away. I just want to go back to the way things were. They were just burnt out. And so I found a lot of people gravitating back to the way things used to be. And I think with AI, it's a catalyst for change because, and today we're really going to focus on teacher use. There are two phases, and this is how I roll it out. There's phase one, which is teacher use. And then there's phase two, which is student use. And today we're really going to focus on you, making sure you're comfortable and making sure that you can use it for instructional purposes. Maybe another time we can focus on students. But what we're going to want to think about, and I hear people asking questions about detection and sources, that would mostly be for a lot of concerns around student use. That's a whole different presentation, but I do need to think we need I do think that we need to rethink how we're assessing learning and what types of teaching and assessments we're providing to our students. But that I could literally speak to an hour about that. But today we're really going to focus on this phase 1 teacher use. So first, I would just want to make sure you understand what generative AI is. So the easy definition I give to people that they kind of understand is they say it's the world's smartest librarian. So it's as if the librarian read every single book in the library, memorized it, and if you ask them a question, they could just regurgitate it back to you, and they can rewrite it within seconds. So you could say, describe digital citizenship for a kindergartner, and they could do that. And then, or like write a lesson plan, let's say, for a kindergartner. And then you could say, rewrite this for the administration, talking about the scope and sequence of digital citizenship from kindergarten through 8th grade. And I can rewrite it within seconds. So that's kind of the easy way that I describe it. But more technically speaking, what it is. So first of all, there's a difference between generative AI and AI. Generative AI is generating content. We have AI in almost everything we do. It's in our cars, it's in our phones. If you have an Alexa or Google or Siri Home or Siri or any of those like things in your house, that's AI. So it's everywhere, and it's going to be embedded into every software we use. So I don't really love to talk about tools because I think that the tools are just popping up right now, and pretty soon just everything you've already used forever and ever, it's going to be embedded right in there. Microsoft, Google, like any web tool that you use for creation is going to start to have AI in it. My principal that I work with, he just told me today that we're doing this whole curriculum mapping unit, and we're using this software Atlas. And Atlas has an AI text generator built into the curriculum mapping software. So I'm not saying you use that, but just as an example, it's going to be in every single thing we use, and we're not going to really need to use these isolated things. So how does it work? So I described that it's generating content. The content could be a text, it could be video, it could be audio, it could be an image, it could be any kind of content. And how does it work? So what it does is it has large data sets that are taken from all over. And that's where I know some of you mentioned the source comment. So let's just for a minute talk about images, because that's a sensitive one. Some vendors like, yeah, I'm going to show you, Christine. I'm going to show you that. I think I'm pronouncing right. Yeah. When we do the activity, I'm going to show you how some companies allow that, some don't. But for image generation, it's a big scandal right now because Adobe pays their creators and then they use those creations for the AI image generators. Some companies are not telling you where it's from. So then it starts to, I saw some library media specialists in here, the fair use thing. We could save that again for a whole other time, but I really want to make sure you can use it for you. But so what it's doing, let's say there's text. There's a lot of text in there. And what it's doing is it's analyzing all the text that it was trained on. So it's a large language model is trained on a large amount of text. And what it's doing is predicting the next most probable word. So if I said, I'm going to need you guys to type in the chat, once upon a, what would you say? Or you could unmute. Shirley said time. Good.
Time.
Yeah. What about cat in the
Hat.
You could think of probably 100 more, right? So that's exactly how AI is working. It's predicting the next most probable word. And it's going word by word by word by word by word. Where us as humans, we like synthesize the world around us and we process it and then we speak, hopefully, right? We process and then we speak. But a large language model or generative AI is not synthesizing or processing. It's reading and then predicting the next most probable word, the next most probable word, the next most probable word, word by word by word by word. That's how it works. It's not new. Like I said, it's in a lot of the things we already use. And what makes this a bit different than a search engine, if you just went to Google and search something, then you'd have a lot of search results and you'd have to read through them and then kind of process it and make your own kind of thing. And what AI does is, I mean, like we said before, it's not actually processing, but it's if whatever prompt you put in. So if you said, um, write an email to staff or to parents, because you guys are teachers. Write an email to parents telling them about Chinese New Year that's coming up. We're going to be celebrating Chinese New Year. Give them a little bit of a history and tell them that we're going to be having a celebration on date, time, whatever. It will generate that email for you. And it will even put in some facts if you tell it to about the Chinese New Year. So what's different about this is it's giving you exactly what you want instead of you having to go through and find it and make your own version of it. Again, it might not all be true. So there are hallucinations. That's what it's called when it's not accurate. It's called a hallucination. When it doesn't know the answer, it just predicts what it thinks you might want. So that's why I see some of you asking for the sources, which is really important. And some tools do give you those sources. And a search engine, you would have to go through and read and find the resources. So the way I describe AI use for students and teachers, and in the book I wrote a curator, and I've changed it to be a bit more child friendly after the book was written. So I originally called it a curator. So it shouldn't be the final product. You shouldn't use AI, take this thing that comes from AI and use it as your final product. You should use it as a first draft. And we're going to do all this later. So I know I'm saying a lot now. I'm going to, go back and make sure it all sticks. So you pick and choose things that resonate with you. But the child-friendly term for that, because they don't really get the whole art curator vibe, I call it a DJ, right? And they're picking and choosing their own beats and things that resonate with them, making their own kind of playlist. So that's how I describe it. For adults is more of a curator, and for children, more of a DJ, to help put it in perspective. But you wouldn't want to take what you get from AI and only use that. So we're going to dive a bit more into that. And if anyone has any questions along the way, just type them in the chat and I'll be sure to answer them. So before we dive in, I really loved this TED Talk. I share it all the time. So this is Sal Khan. He created, you might have heard of Khan Academy, and he did this really incredible TED Talk about how AI could save, not destroy, education. It's a little bit self-promotionally in the fact that he has an AI tool that's in beta right now called Conmigo. So he does talk about AI, but then he goes into his tool. So I'm not trying to sell you on his tool. It's just a concept and idea of what he's building. I don't think I shared it with sound. So let me stop sharing and then reshare again with sound. There you go.
So anyone who's been paying attention for the last few months has been seeing headlines like this, especially in education. The thesis has been students are going to be using ChatGPT and other forms of AI to cheat, do their assignments, they're not going to learn, and it's going to completely undermine education as we know it. Now, what I'm going to argue today is not only are there ways to mitigate all of that, if we put the right guardrails, we do the right things, we can mitigate it, but I think we're at the cusp of using AI for probably the biggest positive transformation that education has ever seen. And the way we're going to do that is by giving every student on the planet an artificially intelligent but amazing personal tutor, and we're going to give every teacher on the planet an amazing artificially intelligent teaching assistant. And just to appreciate how big of a deal it would be to give everyone a personal tutor, I show you this clip from Benjamin Bloom's 1984 2 Sigma study, or he called it the 2 Sigma problem. The 2 Sigma comes from 2 standard deviations, sigma the symbol for standard deviation, and he had good data that showed that, look, a normal distribution, that's the one that you see in the traditional bell curve right in the middle, that's how the world kind of sorts itself out, that if you were to give personal one-to-one tutoring for students, that you can actually get a distribution that looks like that right. It says tutorial one-to-one with the asterisk. like that right distribution, a 2 standard deviation improvement. Just to put that in plain language, that could take your average student and turn them into an exceptional student. It can take your below average student and turn them into an above average student. Now, the reason why he framed it as a problem was he said, well, this is all good, but how do you actually scale group instruction this way? How do you actually give it to everyone in an economic way? What I'm about to show you is, I think, the first moves towards doing that. Obviously, we've been trying to approximate it in some way at Khan Academy for over a decade now, but I think we're at the cusp of accelerating it dramatically. I'm going to show you the early stages of what our AI, which we call Khanmigo, what it can now do, and maybe a little bit of where it is actually going. So this right over here is a traditional exercise that you or many of your children might have seen on Khan Academy. But what's new is that little bot thing at the right. And we'll start by seeing one of the very important safeguards, which is the conversation is recorded and viewable by your teacher. It's moderated actually by a second AI. And also, it does not tell you the answer. It is not a cheating tool. Notice, when the student says, tell me the answer, it says, I'm your tutor, what do you think is the next step for solving the problem? Now, if the student makes a mistake, and this will surprise people who think large language models are not good at mathematics, notice not only does it notice the mistake, it asks the student to explain their reasoning, but it's actually doing what I would say not just even an average tutor would do, but an excellent tutor would do. It's able to divine what is probably the misconception in that student's mind, that they probably didn't use the distributive properly. Remember, we need to distribute the -2 to both the 9 and the 2m inside of the parentheses.
What do you guys think of that? I want to hear what you thought about it. You could either unmute or type in the chat. Is anything like new? Was that new for anyone? This concept of a personalized tutor for students. Is that new?
It was new for me, and I was surprised that it didn't give the answer, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't. I played with it. It really does not give the answer. And it guides them. And this is not the only tool. That's why I don't like to tell people, like, this is the tool. Like, yes, he's a pretty famous person compared to other ones that are creating them, but there's a lot of tools like this out there, and it does not give you the answer. I see impressive. Yeah. So I think that personally never heard of it. I'm surprised no answers were given to, because I have students who, so it depends what AI they're using, Ryan. So if they're using ChatGPT, that will give you the answer for sure. It doesn't have any guardrails or parameters up. Certain AI tools are built with parameters or guardrails that are designed for this. And what's really interesting and cool, I think they're going to be built right into like Google or Microsoft. And when your students are doing their work, the teacher will be able to see how they use it. I'm going to show you a tool towards the end when I give you a hands-on activity, and you can see how you could check the sources and how you can ask your students to, I'll call it how you could supervise the chat. But again, there's nothing stopping them from going on a ChatGPT or a Bing or a Bard or any of those things, because they still can, right? But I think what we need to think about is, oh, that's so great. I'm so glad. That's so exciting. There are so many tools, and some schools, like New York City public schools, are blocking it at first. They just blocked it. And when you think about that, like, I think, did I put it in the next slide? I think I did. I think I put it here. I don't know if I did. I'll just talk about it now. So let's talk about this 2 sigma problem first. And he brought it up, like, we don't have enough money to give everyone a personal tutor, right? But if everyone can have a personal AI tutor, if the kid's at home and they get stuck and you're not there with them, they're just stuck. They have to wait till, you come in, and then maybe you guys are doing something else during that period. So they might not ever get unstuck, or they might not care enough to ask when the time comes. So I think that having like a tutor there all the time will help students really propel forward. And then I really wanted to keep this in mind. So this was from the US Department of Education. A lot of teachers are really concerned, like, is it AI taking my job? They're really concerned about that. And what the US Department of Education said was that AI will not take the jobs of humans, teachers, and that all final decisions for all educational final decisions will be made by a human. So they have this whole chart, you can see humans in the loop, and they think it's really important that any AI decision, the final decision is made by a human teacher. And so some of like I was saying, the schools were banning it. But what you have to keep in mind, and we're really focusing on teacher use again, but I just want to put the seed out there for people that are like, ban it. I don't want to use it in my class. Students, if they have another phone or they have another laptop, they're probably going to use it. If a kid wants to cheat, they're going to find a way to cheat, right? It's just the reality. Like, we found ways to cheat, or maybe not us, but people our age, no matter how old you were, found a way. They will find a way. It's the students that don't have access at home. They only might have their school device. And we need to keep in mind that by not teaching them how to use these tools, we're actually like causing a very big digital divide. So those students might not have access if they don't have a device, and then they're not learning how to use it. And at our core as educators, our real purpose in education really is to prepare our students to be successful in their future. This is their future. This is their world. Like, it's not going anywhere. And when people ask me, like, will AI take my job? I always say, and I'm going to ruin my next one. I think it's my next one. Yeah, here we go. AI might not replace your job, but someone who uses AI probably will take your job. And not because your job's going to fire you, but as like I talked about before with the pandemic, we're just burnt out, right? We're just like burnt out. And this report said that 49% of our time is spent directly with students. That means 51% of our time is spent on administrative tasks. That is not why we went into teaching. That is not why we chose our job. We didn't ever want to do those things. And here we are doing them. But AI can help us. So they said that AI can actually save us up to 8 hours a week. Like, that's a lot of time. So what are you going to do with that time? Tell us in the chat. Like, if you could buy 8 hours back, what would you do with those 8 hours? And it doesn't need to be work related. Maybe you're going to start going for like walks or hikes or reading books or knitting or something fun, right? You could needlepoint more, Shirley. Spend more time with your family. Yeah. So just imagine how much happier you're going to be when you have all this extra time. You're going to do things you really enjoy. And you're just going to be more effective, more efficient, have more time. And you're just going to be a happier teacher, right? So yeah, it does. That's exactly what it does. Is it makes you more efficient and it increases your productivity. So when I'm gonna maybe cut to it now, but sorry, I go out of order sometimes, but it's fine. I call it the balancing act. I'm gonna move it up for you guys. I call it the balancing act. So I think what we need to really think about is what aspects are essential to your unique qualities that AI maybe can assist, make you more efficient, but which ones should you preserve and not? Like, so which ones are essential and which ones are not? So like, for example, I have teachers that make boundaries, like very strict boundaries for themselves. One teacher, and I'm going to show you uses of them later, but this is a very personal thing, right? So we just had report cards due last week. One teacher discovered that she was a pre-K teacher, that she could use AI to help her come up with more the written narratives for the report cards to help say that a preschool student is maybe talking too much or maybe doing like, I don't know, that was the example she used. I'm not like saying. So she came up with some really nice ways to say certain things that she didn't know how to say. And I had another teacher that was like, that's where they draw the line. That is personal from me as a teacher, And I do not think I should be using AI for that. So you really have to start to think what jobs are not essential and you can use them, and which are distinctive that you need to preserve for yourself. And what you should always do, again, even if you use AI, use it as a first draft, take the idea and then modify it for your voice, right? You want it to sound like you. You don't want it to sound like totally off where people are like, oh, she clearly used AI, right? But I tell everyone I use it. And in the beginning, I used to write written with assistance by AI just because I wanted my staff I wanted to normalize it. So yes, it can, Rose. So we're going to actually try that. That's the activity I have for you. But before we do that, does anyone, or maybe we should save the hard line for like later. If anyone has one now and you want to put in the chat, like, what do you think you will personally draw the line and never use AI for? My most recent podcast guest, I need to post it this week. He said, he rose up this thing. Do you think you should use it for like a sympathy, like an apology note? Like, is that not personal? But I argued it. I'm like, maybe sometimes you can't find the words and you need help finding the words. But some people think, no, an apology needs to come from the heart and that can't be written by AI. And he's like, is it an apology if it was written by AI? What do you think? Is it an apology if it was written by AI? And there's a double-edged sword here. Either you believe it should come from the heart, or two, maybe you just can't find the words and you need help finding the words. What do you think? You could either say it or you could type it in the chat. A eulogy, that is super personal. And you could interpret any of these things however you want. I'm not giving you the right answers. I'm just helping guide your thinking. Get ideas, give it your, I like it. All the ideas. It's good. These are good answers. All right. So has anyone here, some of you haven't used it, some of you are hearing it for the first time. If you have used it, maybe tell us how you've used it. Because I'm about to give you a lot of examples, but I want to know your examples before I go to mine. If you've used it and you feel like unmuting and sharing with your colleagues, because I try to create a community in my district where we share with each other, because I think you all have each other all the time. So it's really nice to build this community. A policy and procedural manual, leveling text. Yeah, that's a great use of it. I even have foreign language teachers that use it to translate and then create leveled reading passages based on the translated text too.
And I've used it to write a speech that I gave at graduation. I was like, I need a welcoming speech to a Catholic school graduation. And then it was my draft. And then I personalized it to myself. Also, right now I'm substituting for a middle school ELA teacher, and the kids are about to finish in sixth grade a book. And I asked for suggestions for culminating projects for the book. And I
That's
came up with a
awesome.
bunch.
And so when you said your graduation speech, did you feel like it sounded like you?
I did, because I felt like the AI generated speech didn't, but there were a lot of good bones to the speech. So I kept the things that I like, and then I personalized it to myself.
So you were like a curator or a DJ.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. Does anyone else want to share? It was a great example.
I've used it for a few things. I've used it to do my greeting letters to the parents in the beginning of the year. I've used it to create some digital citizenship lesson plans for kindergarten kids.
Yeah.
I've also, I mean, we were redecorating the house and I asked it to create a Vincent Van Gogh inspired bedroom. So I mean, I've played around with it, from an artistic end. I've used it for work. I've used it for personal reasons. I mean, I love it because when I get stuck, it helps me, and then I
Yeah.
just tweak it to make it my own.
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes our students get stuck, right? Like they don't know what to write next. And even if you just use it as a brainstorming tool or to help you get started. But I see in the chat, Laura said, I think we know how to edit and make personal, but will future generations know how? I think that that's our job as educators. That is our job, right? Like we teach students how to write. We have to teach them how to use AI the right way. So it'll be just part of the writing process, I think. I think the whole writing process might shift a little bit. But I think that that is our job to help them learn these skills, because the one thing we do not want to do is to lose our own voice. That is the one thing I hope that that's what makes us human, right? And unique. So thank you all for sharing. That was really great. So
Can I just add something
go
with
ahead,
what
please.
Laura said?
Yeah.
When we teach them to do research, when they're doing a research project on a certain topic, we teach them that they can't plagiarize. They can't just take it from the book. And so we teach them how to put it into their own words so that they can, so it's not plagiarized. And it's the same thing when we teach them, whether if back when I was younger, it was taken from either a book or an encyclopedia. Now they do their research off of websites, and we teach them that. It's the same thing, the same way that we teach them how to research from the websites. We have to teach them how to use the AI that same way. That they can't just take it at, it's not your own work. That it's all researched and pulled together for you. And that's what I teach my students, that this is, you didn't just create this. This is all of the information. Like you said, it's like the ultimate librarian.
Yeah.
It just pulled the information in for you. You didn't have to go and do the research. And
Well,
that's what I tell them.
but we should tell them to make sure that if it is factual, they back it up with like a legitimate resource, right? Because we don't want them just trusting everything AI says, because there is a lot of misinformation in there. But it's the way I look at it, and I wrote this in my book. When we get to the research part, I have a whole like timeline. Actually, let me go to it. So we'll go backward. Excuse me, we'll go backward. So if you look at the history of research, so I called it a pressing revolution. Get it? Like the printing press, a pressing revolution. I thought that was funny. I laughed at myself so many times out loud when I was alone writing this book. Like I was like, I hope people get these jokes. So I took the history of research, really. And if you look at it, in the 50s, there was books. In the 60s, there was a photocopier, so you could finally take a photocopy image and bring it home with you. And then there was electronic databases. And then in the 80s, personalized computers came out. I don't know if many people had them, but they had them. In the 90s, there were search engines. And then in the I think it's supposed to be 20s. I think I messed up there. A little typo. Sorry. There was Google and Wikipedia, and not in the 1900s. It was not in the 1900s. And I use Wikipedia as example because when Wikipedia first came out, we used to say like, Wikipedia is not a reliable resource, right? That's what we said. That's not reliable. And if a student ever put Wikipedia on as their resource, you'd be like, that's not reliable. But we evolved to say Wikipedia is a great place to start, because you don't know what you don't know. So with AI, it's sort of like the same thing. We don't know what we don't know. We could use AI as that starting point. But if it is like fact checking, like if they're right now, it's Black History Month, and I know that in my district we're doing all kind of work around Black History Month. So if a student is researching someone, we want to make sure that whatever they're putting in there is a fact and not just made up. So we want to, teach those kinds of, we used to call it media literacy, and now it's like AI literacy, but maybe it falls under the media literacy umbrella. And then we had mobile devices in our pocket, and now we have generative AI, and hopefully soon it will be factual. But right now, I don't trust it enough to like believe it just as it is. I also have MLA and APA citation guide. So if a student is going to just copy and paste it, that's okay. They're allowed to do that, just like they would do with any other resource. Just make sure that you cite it as you would anything else, right? So I did make a one-pager citation guide. If you just look up my name, Alana Winnick, like alanawinnick.com, on the resources section, there's citation guides that you could download. Let's go back a little bit. Okay, so I want to show you some ways that you can use this, and then I'm going to give you some time for some hands-on activities. So I put this word cloud together just so like you could see all the ways that you can use it. But then I have some stacks for you here. So you can use it for presentations and speeches. And what I did, I just want to show you this. If you notice when I go, I think it was back a slide. Do you see this little thing in the bottom right? It says made with Gamma. So that's a website. There's many like this. So I don't want to I don't like talking about tools. I told you that. This was one of the first ones that came out. I think Google Slides has a version 2 now. With Gamma, you could create a presentation about, and you could tell it what to make a presentation about, and it does it for you. And what I did for this is I took chapters from my book, and I took like the table of contents, and I took the chapters and the subchapters, and I popped it into Gamma, and it made me a PowerPoint. And then I obviously went back and tweaked it and added in things that I thought were important or images, but it made my entire presentation for me. Then I downloaded it as a PowerPoint. But you could use it in their website too. But I just want to show you that it can help you create presentations. And we have someone in here that wrote a speech with it too. So that was pretty cool. Informal emails to families, staff, email replies. Pretty soon, oops, I went back. Pretty soon, I heard from Sam Altman, who created ChatGPT. He said one day in our very near future, we're going to wake up and not only we're going to have every email already read for us with a reply waiting. It's not going to send it for you because it's going to want to make sure you're okay with it, but it will sound like you. It's going to start to, and Microsoft is releasing Copilot. So that will allow you to search through all of your content, and it's going to like know your voice and start to learn you and start to learn like if it's scheduling a meeting, when you would want to, it's going to really learn you. You're going to have a true assistant. And I'm so excited about that. It can create images. Like if you need a perfect image for a presentation, like it describes something that like maybe you can't really, find in Google. We also used it for Poetry Month last month, and our students wrote poems, and we popped it into AI, got an image that matched the poetry, and then we had them go back and revise a poem to add in some more inspiration that they got from the image. They were like magical. We have a whole bulletin board about them. Newsletters, letters of recommendations. Like most of the time, your letters of recommendation are very basic, right? You'll add in the details about the student. You say, write a letter of recommendation that has, and you put in the things that make that student important. I've even put in previous ones that I've written, like, here's a previous one that I've written, use the same tone, voice and tone. And the student that we're writing about is also, I just want to make sure everyone knows, don't put any personally identifiable information in the chat. This is like so important because they're using our data, not all of them. Like Microsoft Enterprise, the school account doesn't. Mostly everything else uses what we put in to train the model. So just think, would I want that to be spit back out to someone else later? So I just say strip all the student one or student, like don't put a name in. Don't put in anything you wouldn't want someone else seeing. Let's put it that way. So you can use it for all these types of things, agendas, board presentations, policy creations. A lot of you said all these things when I asked you. So lesson and unit planning is where we're really going to focus on, but content creation. I had a kindergarten teacher, they were learning about responsibility, had it create a song about responsibility to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And that was really cute. So you could use it. I'm just trying to give you all different kinds of grade levels because I know that my teachers that are at the younger level were like, I don't know how I'm going to use this. Like they thought they had no use, and now they are really excited about it. So yeah, there's a lot of examples on here too. Will you provide resources to accomplish these things? I'm going to give you, so here's an transforming learning. So we're not going to, yes, I'm going to give you resources to answer your question, Maria, and I'm going to give you time to play too. So these will be how it will transform learning. Again, we're really focusing on you this time as a teacher. I could come back and keep doing these a lot, like more and more. And eventually, like we talked about the phases, eventually we'll talk about student use and how this will transform learning. But right now, we're really just focusing on you as the teacher and making sure that you're using it. So I think I just want to get you jumped in and trying it and playing with it. So that's like my goal. And we have 20 minutes left, I think. So there's 2 prompt engineering frameworks. The first, I just tell people like, just play, just say, write a song about responsibility using the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, or write report card comments for a whatever grade about blah, blah, whatever you are working on. Like I use this for everything I do because it just saves me so much time. It gives me like the first draft of something and then I make it my own, but it just saves me so much time. And everyone's like, how do you do everything you do? I'm like, I use AI. That's how I do it all. So here is one prompt engineering framework, and this will just help you make a better first prompt. But I tell people don't get stuck on these things now. Like just play, explore, ask it for things. But if you want to make, because then what happens is you start writing back, rewrite this and do blah, blah, blah. And I saw like funny prompts about like people feeling like they're yelling at the AI and like punishing it for like not writing it correctly. They're like rewrite it and make it, and you could just keep asking it to rewrite it in whatever way you want. But here's a prompt engineering framework that will help you write it better the first time around. But don't worry about that now. As you use it now, as you explore, you'll get better. And here's another prompt engineering framework. So set the scene, be specific, simplify your language, structure the output, share feedback. So again, I don't want you to stress about this time. I just want you to get in and play. Then, oh, I don't know why it's not showing that. Oh, prompt. Okay, I don't know why it didn't show the prompt ideas. So these are websites for you if you want like prompt ideas. So Monica Burns, she's great, class tech tips. She wrote 50 ChatGPT prompts for teachers. So she has a whole list of prompts for you that you just copy. Like, can you suggest some tools or resources that can help me do this? And she categorizes them by topic. Make a list of keyboard, I don't know if you want keyboard shortcuts, but summarize my notes from the meeting on, and then you paste your notes. And she has all these different categories and 50 prompts for you. So I put several of those. So AI for Education has their prompt library. So what type of prompts are you looking for? Social emotional learning and icebreakers when you're doing an icebreaker activity, and they give you some examples. So I gave you 4 different websites that have sample prompts. So if you want some ideas, those are great ideas. But I really want you to like play. So one of my teachers made this. She calls it the super prompt. If you want a lesson, and listen, the next few 15-ish minutes are really for you to play and explore while I'm here with you. But if you want a really great like unit or lesson plan, she created this this template. So you are a 3rd grade educator. Design a detailed lesson plan that explain the objectives. And when she fills this in, she gets a really, really great thing. So I'm going to give you time to just try this one. And again, you don't have to use it, but I just want you to play. So I'm going to put this in the chat for you so you can just easily copy and paste it. And you're going to say, well, where do I do it? I know that that's the next question that's going to come. Where do I go? So first I'm going to paste in the lines. And then you're going to say to me, I don't remember what I was supposed to fill in. So I'm going to put that back up on the board. Don't worry. We're going to go to the website perplexity.ai. So I'm going to put that in the chat so you could click on it. The reason I like Perplexity AI, this is not what I use for my teachers. I prefer Microsoft's for them because they don't store our data. They don't, it's not, they're not using it to train the model or anything. It's a bit more, I don't want to say Perplexity isn't secure. It's not that it isn't secure. Just do not put anything in there that you don't want to be spit back to someone else. But the reason I really like Perplexity is there's no login required. So it's really quick and easy for you to get on. And because there's no login required, it doesn't know who you are. So it's not tying the information back to you as a person. Also, if you're using this with students in New York State for public schools, we have laws that we can't use things if there's no signed data protection agreement. I don't think you guys have those rules. So we can use this with our students. So I like that. The other thing I really love about it is I'm just going to click the history of birthday cakes, like whatever. It's probably not going to be that bad. What I like about this one is you guys were asking about the sources. This one gives me the sources. It tells me the sources of where it got it from. So I really love that because I can fact check and know the sources. A lot of other ones do not do that. ChatGPT doesn't do that. So I like Perplexity because it gives you the sources. The other thing I really love about Perplexity is at the top, there's this link, copy link. And if a student, let's say, is using this, they could submit the link along with their work. Or if you want to share it with a colleague, you can copy and paste and share with a colleague. And it's a link back to this chat. So I love that it has this. So what I want you to do is go to perplexity.ai, copy the fill in the blank Mad Libs. We're going to do Mad Libs. Copy that. And I'm going to put back on the slides the red things, what you need to fill in. So you say to me, like, I don't know what I was supposed to write. You can fill that in there. So I want really just to make sure that you take time to fill this in so you can walk away with something that you could try tomorrow, literally. Oh, you don't have access. Do you have access to any of them, Helen? You could use whichever one you might have access to.
There another like website that they can go to in case they don't know which one to go to next?
There's there's like, I don't know, I could give them a bunch. I'll give you guys some. I'll put them in the chat. I just don't prefer them, but it's fine. It's fine. I just want to make sure you guys try any of them. Try chat. Or I don't know if it's gonna work for you. I'm gonna give you a bunch. They're not preferred. I'm just gonna preface that. Oh, try incognito mode. This is, you're gonna have to make an account for that. For Bing Chat. Try this one. I prefer Bing over ChatGPT. There's some other tools like Magic School. I call that AI on training wheels. It's great for first-time users. Like, you guys will love it. But I don't really like to, teach tools. I told you that. But it's a great like first start. And then as you get comfortable, it's not as powerful as something like a Perplexity or ChatGPT or Bing or Microsoft or Bard or any of those, but it gets you where you want quicker and gives you more results because it does all the prompting for you. But if you want something a bit more specific, something else will be a little bit better. But I just put in there in the chat. Has anyone gotten a lesson plan yet, or you haven't finished typing in the Mad Libs activity? You don't need to use all the sentences either.
I got a lesson plan on comparing fractions using benchmarks
And what do you think of it?
before. Well, I started looking at it. It's pretty good, but then it tells me to get either I think it's a GeoBoards or egg cartons. So
You could say, I don't have
I
that,
have
but
to.
I have, you could type back, say, I don't have those things.
Oh.
You have blah, blah, blah. Can you rewrite it using what I have? And it will.
All right, I'm going to try it.
Yeah. Look at that.
So it tells me egg cartons or GeoBoards. The rest is diffraction strips or cards. Okay.
Just say, I don't have whatever you don't have. And if you have something different, then tell it what you do have.
I put in to create a hands-on activity related to light reflection for fourth graders. And I asked them to use mirrors, flashlights, and paper. And I have this problem all the time. I find that it does not give like a detailed enough hands-on activity. Like it's
Oh.
just garbage that it writes.
Did you tell it that?
Now, you want me to say this is garbage, or what do I say?
Yeah, I mean, you can, but you can say this is not detailed enough. I'm looking for, like, yell at it. People like, and they feel bad.
So then where do you do, just in this tool?
You're right in the
Where do
chat
you
box,
respond?
right back
Ask follow-up, where it says ask follow-up? Okay,
yeah, ask follow-up.
okay.
And also, just so you guys see underneath what it wrote, there's a copy button. So you could copy the text and put it somewhere else, like in a Word doc or something, or you can save the link to the chat like I showed you. I'm glad you think it's cool, Rose. Does anyone else want to share a lesson they got?
I did a lesson and I put in to use Discover Education.
And what, did it do a good job?
It did do a good job. I put it in 8th grade, Great Depression. And Discover Education is one of the resources we provide for the diocese. And it gave a great lesson. It didn't give an exact video, but it said like how to use the video in the lesson. So it allowed you the creativity to choose your
I
own
wonder
video.
if you do redo the same thing, but you don't say Discovery Education, what it will come back with.
Okay, I'll do it.
I'm just curious. Maybe it will give you it will give you a specific video, maybe.
Oh, so Doreen shared her link from Perplexity.
Oh, look
and
at that.
and she made a grade 8 lesson plan on slope.
Oh my goodness. And she talked back to it. Need more details with worksheet. Yeah, because you could ask it for to make a worksheet for you. You could actually, I forgot to say that. You could say, create an 10-question assessment, including multiple choice, fill in the blank, and an open-ended question. And it will literally create an assessment for you. And then there, like the one that I said, Magic School, that one allows you to like export things into all different types of software. So, like if you use any type of assessment software, so like that's why I say that one's like more like training wheels. But when I train on these types of things, I try not to focus on the tool ones because you could just kind of poke around and play with those on your own. I like people to understand like the big concept of AI and how it works. I'm so glad, Doreen, you're in awe. I love that. You can't turn on your Mac now. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And I know we have 5 more minutes, and I don't need to go through the rest of my PowerPoint, but I did want to tell you. So like when I used it to write my book, and everyone's like thinks maybe that's cheating or something like that. And when my teachers read my book, some of them, I didn't tell all of them I wrote a book, I just needed some feedback. One of them texted me and said, I read the book. It honestly reads like you're speaking, ready to use some AI shit. But then she said to me, I'm so confused. Like, how did you use AI to help you write the book? Because it sounds just like you. And I think that I put in exactly what I want to say and I tell it to keep my voice, and then I go back and I edit it. So that's how I make it sound like me. So I just want to tell you guys that. And then I've had on some pretty incredible people on my podcast. So if you are looking to hear how people are actually using it in their practice and in their classrooms, I have some so it started as a web show, like I was saying before. They're all on YouTube, so if you want to watch it, you can, but they're also a podcast, so you can listen to it. Donnie Piercy's a 5th grade teacher, and he uses it with his students, but they're not allowed to use it. So he uses it all the time with his students, but they're not allowed to use it. So that episode, Donnie Piercy's a really good one. It's called AI in the Classroom. And then let me just share so you could see some of the people I've had on, because I think that Tim Needles is art, design, music. AJ Giuliani, he's like a pretty well-known author about project-based learning, and he co-wrote a book with John Spencer, who's also on here. Then Donnie was the one that I was talking about. It's a 5th grade teacher. Mary Howard is also a teacher. Carl Hooker, he talks about failure with AI, because we're all learning this. We have to embrace it, and like it's failure is like first attempt in learning. Vicki Davis is like pretty well-known ed tech like blogger. She probably has prompt ideas too. I'm going to add that to the resource because she definitely does. And my most recent one I posted, but this was a big one, Microsoft Education's Chief Innovation Officer, because I want to see like where the future of a big industry leader like Microsoft was going. So that was a really big one. And Sal Khan and I have been going back and forth, so I'm hoping to get him on the one for the TED Talk that we listened to. And ISTE's CEO just emailed me saying he would be on. So like, I'm trying to get thought leaders to see where this is going, but in the mix of the thought leaders, I also want educators because I think that's what like you guys want to hear. You want to hear what educators are doing in the classroom. And one episode I'm working on right now is with students, and it's going to be what we wish our teachers knew. And it's going to be kids talking to you, their teachers. So that's an episode I'm working on right now. So I'm just on this journey, and if you want to continue the journey, then I'm happy to bring you along. But I hope that you walked out today with something that you can use literally tomorrow, and I hope you walked out with tools that you want to try. Definitely check out, is this for free? I can look up prices on things for you. I believe Magic School there is a free one. CurryPod also has a free edition. That's for lessons though. That's not like what we're kind of doing, but Magic School has a free one. Yeah, it's so crazy how times have changed. And that's why I started off in the beginning like this, because it's I don't want to call it scary. It's exciting. It's such an exciting time, but in this time where, AI can literally, I call it my whole, like, if I have a tagline, it's process over product. So, in a world where AI can literally produce the end product for us in seconds, we need to really rethink what we're assessing, right? We can't assess that end product anymore. We can't lecture at students and say, write an essay and then grade the essay. We really need to be focusing on the learning process. And I do whole presentations on like what I think that means, but it is a new time for us, and the teachers that have been always, oh, I didn't talk about detection or bias. So actually, fun fact, I'm recording next week with Ken Shelton on AI bias and discrimination. There is so much bias in there, and that's why we need to really check our sources. And I could do I could keep coming back if you guys want to have me. I rolled this out to my students in my district, and the first thing that I taught them was, it was not, oh, this is cool, this is a cheating tool. They look at it very differently because the way I introduced it was, what is AI? And I could literally walk you through the lesson and I used code.org. I didn't make anything. We trained a model, but we trained it bad so they can see that the ChatGPT or any of them, AI is only as good as the people that trained it, because I wanted them to see that. We talked a lot about misinformation, finding misinformation based on the training data. And we talked about bias, and the question I gave them, because we are a very diverse population. I said, if you were an image generator, describe, and I asked you to generate an image of a nurse. What would you generate? And like the first word is what? What do you think they say? A nurse. What do you think? A woman. She has blonde hair or whatever. Like a woman who, I'm like, why does it have to be a woman? And then they're like, I guess it doesn't. And I started some first graders. And then I made them come up with all of the biases that they see in the world. And then we generated images for our cultural night of their culture, and they had to find the biases in their culture. So that was a pretty cool way to tie it in. So the way that I rolled it out some was through that. So now they're like detectives, and they know they have to have a really critical lens when they're using AI to make sure they're looking for the bias and looking for the misinformation. Because I think, you guys looked at your lesson plans. You've been doing this forever. You know your content, you know your students, you know what you want to pull and you know what you don't. And we need to really teach that to students. So yeah, we talked about sources and Perplexity as a sources. We talked about, I didn't talk about detection. Detection doesn't work. The tools just don't work. But if we do process over product and we focus on the learning process and we assess the learning process, we don't really have to worry about the end product and the detection, because we know the student got there. And I could keep going about all of these things. So I don't want to take up more of your time. I know that we were supposed to end at 5, but anything you're interested in learning, like, this is what I love to talk about. So I'm happy to continue the conversation. So if it's so different, again, that's what I was saying, Matt, like your students, well, maybe not the first day of school, but you get to know them and like that's so off, right? That's like not on brand, and that it's probably not.
Yeah, this is all great. And Alana, I want to thank you so much for being able to, come and share all your wonderful knowledge with us. My partner Laura just put in the Google form for today's session. I really urge every single one of you to fill it out. Mainly because it will give us insight on what we can continue doing going forward with all of this AI, how best we can assist you. We want to make sure that we are supporting you in the best way that we can. Welcome and thank you for attending our AI is Not a Trend PD featuring Alana Winnick. As an exclusive, we are going to show you how we used Perplexity.ai to create our religion lesson for Lent for 3rd grade. So we're going to begin by first going into perplexity.ai, as we learned about in our PD session, and I'm going to follow you through the process and some key things to remember. So when we're there, we're going to type in our question, and as you will begin to see in a minute, I typed in how to create a lesson for Lent for 3rd grade and include videos and activities for them to do. And as we learned, Perplexity.ai gives us the sources where I gathered that information from. So it does give us a YouTube video, it gives us an introduction to the lesson, and I'm just going to take that introduction at the moment and I'm going to put it into my lesson description on my lesson plan template, so that I can see what how I want to start my students in the session. And then instead of taking their YouTube video, I am actually going to adapt it and bring in a resource from Discovery Education. I'm going to keep that video component, but instead, when we go into Discovery Education and we log in, I'm actually going to type in the word Lent, and one of our popular videos from Holy Kids is going to generate. And I'm just going to use that video that we have for the little ones to use it. Or if I'd like the big ones for 6 to 8, then I could do 10 facts about Lent. But for now, I'm going to stick to Holy Kids, which is great for 3 to 5. It's also good for about K to 2 if you think that they can handle that. So I'm going to take that video aspect and I'm just going to go into my lesson plan and type in show students the DE video from Holy Kids, and I'm going to link that there so that when I bring up my lesson plan through Google Slides, I'll be able to just click on the link and it'll bring me directly to that video. And because I'm already signed into Discovery Education, it'll keep me logged in and I won't have to re-log in. In some instances, it logs you out, but in most cases, it will just bring you directly to the video. And then it gives me a discussion piece to talk about how the number 40 is a big deal in a lot of our Bible stories, and especially in Lent. And I really liked that aspect, so I think I'm going to keep that when we create our lesson. But I want to expand a little bit on that, especially for our 3rd graders to kind of understand. So I'm going to ask it to, what is the significance of the number 40? Or rather yet, I'm going to have it say, explain the significance of the number 40 in the Bible. And you're going to see that it's then it's not going to take away what I previously asked, but instead it will continue to generate an explanation. And I'm sure you're reading it, but the explanation is just, I think, a little too much than what 3rd graders can comprehend at the moment. It's great. I think as an adult, we might be able to understand it a little bit better than our 3rd graders do in this kind of context. And I really like the explanation that they gave. However, I wanted to adapt it to something that a 3rd grader or an 8-year-old might be able to understand. So I'm going to rephrase the question that I am asking the system to do. So you're going to see in a moment that I come back in And I want to keep this explanation maybe for myself, but I do want to go back in and I'm going to say explain it in a way that 8-year-olds can understand. And you're going to see me type that in right there. And it's going to generate a new response. And again, it's going to give us those sources. And again, I'm being very vague in a sense, but also very particular in what I want the results to be. And after reading it, I see that this is, it gives us some stories from the Bible that also have the number 40 in it and how they were tested. And that brought me up a good idea as to maybe have students look up the stories in the Bible. So I'm just going to take that example and, have it as an explanation for myself so that I know what I'm explaining to the students. And I'm just going to plop that into that lesson plan template. But it sparked an idea for me to have them, I picked four of the stories that the platform generated for me. And I'm going to have students expand on that. I'm going to have students eventually have them pick one of the 4 different Bible stories. And I'm going to have them kind of figure out how they were how the people in that particular story were tested, right? And so now you're going to see that I'm going to go up. And I saw one of the Lenten journal activities as well that I thought could be very captivating. So I'm going to just take and modify some of those activities that the system generated for me. So I want a little bit more of that Lenten journal style. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to have it expand on the Lenten journal. So I'm going to actually say create a journal template for the season of Lent, or that they can use during Lent. And I'm going to go back in and I'm going to say very specific for 3rd graders so that, again, it knows the grade level that I'm working with so that the prompts aren't too difficult. And you'll see here that it came up with kind of like a weekly template that they could do, which I thought was great, something that they could do probably for morning work. Again, it brings us to the sources where it got it from and an overall outline. Now, reading through it, I think there are some great ideas here. I really love the Bible verse reflection, the prayer intention, and that Lenten promise. I think that today's date, the categories in there are all a little too much. I don't want it to be super long for my students, especially for the time that maybe a religion class actually has. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to modify this just a little bit more to kind of fit in what might be able to fit in for a religion class timeline. And I'm actually going to go to Canva. Now, if you're an educator, you can actually get Canva for Education for free. The one that I have right now is just a paid version, but the systems both work the same, except for the education version, you have a little bit more of educational resources than I do at the moment. So, but I'm just going to look for journal page templates. I'm not recreating the wheel. If anything, I want to go off of something that has already been created that I can customize for myself. So I'm going to go into resource type. I want it to be a presentation mode or maybe even a worksheet, and hopefully find something here that will fit into my style. Let's see. Now, sometimes, again, in the Canva for Education, it might be a little bit more clearer, but again, because mine is more of a personal account, it is a bit different. So I'm just trying to see what template best could be modified for what I am looking to create. And this STEM challenge looks interesting. So I'm just going to preview it a little bit. I think I can modify this perfectly for what I need. So, I'm going to focus on the basics here, what I see my vision in being. So obviously, instead of STEM, I'm going to make it a Lent journal instead of challenge, unless you like it to say a Lent challenge, because sometimes these things can be a little challenging, right? Because it causes a lot of self-reflection. But I'm going to go back and I'm just going to take some of the prompts here that I think might work best and fit in my areas. And you'll notice some of the pieces are moving, so I'm just going to lock them in place. And I'm just going to edit what I kind of need from this page. So it's a quick copy and paste. You see here, I can't, it seems like the box is just a regular box that doesn't allow me to put in a text. So I have to bring in a text, and I'll lower that font down so that I don't get as much overflow as I want. And you'll see I still have some overflow there. So I'm just going to reformat this and bring that a little down. Now you can choose to have the bullet points, you can choose to take the bullet points away. That style is now up to you and what you might see best for your students, right? If you want this fully editable on a presentation, that you could do that. And everything here that you see in this video, I will actually include for you, so that you can kind of edit and customize this on your own as well. And if you want to inquire on how to get a free Canva for Education account, just email us, and we can assist you on how to get that done. But here I'm just going to add the lines to make sure if this is something that is printed, I want them to have at least a full line to write. Almost done editing. Sometimes it could be a little tricky. And you're just going to see that I'm going to fast forward through the editing part, but you'll see that I am just adding some of those things there. And as I finish creating this, I'm just gonna turn it into like a PDF, so something that I can print, but I can turn it into a PowerPoint if I want it editable. And I'm just gonna add it into my activity section. If I have it in my Google Drive, I can link it from there. But I'm just gonna add that, you know, they can work on their Lent in journal reflection pages. And again, I could do that on a weekly, on a daily kind of basis for them, depending on what my kind of schedule is. And I can tell them that they can work on it independently, because it does require them to research a Bible scripture that reflects on Lent. I'm going to say that if there aren't any Bibles available at the moment, if like other students are using them, then I can have them research it on the iPad, which is a nice little way to incorporate that technology aspect for them as well, learning those research skills, and how to find different kind of Bible verses online. So that's an option there. And so you were gonna go up, because I need to see at the moment, we did get some Bible stories that were given to us, and again, it's all about fact checking, making sure that I want to take this activity and kind of expand on it, but I also want to make sure that a lot of those Bible verses that are being given to us are also accurate. So it is important to be able to kind of go back and check those sources that are listed, not just by the platform that we're using, but also in general, whether it's Bing Chat or any other kind of AI platform that you might dive into. Always making sure that we go back in and fact check that. I'm just going to go in, and anything that I know that is directions towards me as the teacher, I'm going to put them in bold so that they kind of stand out. And you can lay this information in different ways, like a lesson plan template or in presentation mode, which again, I'll have available for you to kind of put in here, and kind of edit it and use it your own way. But these are just, you know, other different ways for you to kind of go in and use. And so now I'm taking another activity here, as you saw, and I'm going to have it ask to create a quiz for third grade students to use that's based on Lent. And you'll see that it kind of gives us some questions, and I'm going to read through those questions. Maybe it's something we covered, maybe it's something we didn't cover, but I can pick and choose, and again, making sure that the answers that I know are factual are actually there, or I can, you know, edit these questions. They're very standard, they're all multiple choice, which is great. And you're going to see that I'm actually going to go in and trying to see if I can get a critical thinking question as well from the system. So maybe I want, we did talk about the significance of the number 40. So I want to ask a question maybe based on the significance of the number 40. So I'm just going to type that in the chat. I'm just trying to be as specific but vague also as possible. Remember, we do not put any personal information in these kinds of systems that we're using. So it gives us an explanation. I'm reading through it, not really what I wanted. So I'm going to go in and just try again. Just talk back to it, basically. As we learned, you know, we can't be afraid to talk back to it because it keeps learning every time we add something more detail about the parameters of what we're looking for. So I'm going to say create a short response question to third grade students about the significance of the number 40 in the Bible, and then it gave me a question and a little explanation about it as well, which I like. So I can actually take this and kind of work around it. So if I wanted to include this in like a quiz, after we covered this particular lesson or the unit on Lent, maybe this is something that I would like to add to my entire unit. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let us know. You can email any one of us at the emails you see on the screen. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.